If you've not heard, DailyWire Plus is 50% off right now. It's the best deal of the year. That is 1 full year of uncensored shows, exclusive series, documentaries, and more. Do not wait. The deal ends soon. Head over to dailywire.com/cyberweek to join the fight today. President Trump threatens to blow up the Middle East, while Joe Biden actively blows up his own political party. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. Russian President Vladimir Putin insinuates that President Trump might be about to be murdered by the American deep state. And, you know, he's an old KGB guy. He's got all sorts of tricks up his sleeve, but it doesn't mean he's not right. We will get to the accusation in a moment. First, I want to tell you about Preborn. Go to preborn.com/Knowles. The fight for life has never been more crucial than it is right now. While the libs fight to expand abortion, Preborn Ministries is on the front lines fighting for the most vulnerable among us. Preborn's clinics are strategically positioned in areas with the highest abortion rates, offering free ultrasounds and welcoming these women with God's love. The results speak for themselves. The majority of mothers choose life when they see their baby. One ultrasound costs just $28. $140 sponsors 5 ultrasounds. Think about that. You could save multiple lives with a single donation. To donate, dial pound 250 on your cell phone. Say keyword baby. That is pound 250, keyword baby, or visit preborn.com/Knowles, K-N-W-L-E-S, preborn.com/Knowles. I personally support this organization. I strongly encourage you to give whatever you can. All gifts are tax deductible, and Preborn has a 4-star charity rating. Remember, in the fight for life, every ultrasound gives a baby a fighting chance. Go to preborn.com/Knowles today. Preborn.com/Knowles. President Trump is threatening to blow up Gaza if Hamas does not return the hostages. This, obviously, a couple months before President Trump is due to re-enter office. So he's just setting the stage. He writes, quote, "Everybody is talking about the hostages who are being held so violently, inhumanely, and against the will of the entire world in the Middle East, but it's all talk and no action. Please let this truth serve to represent that if the hostages are not released prior to January 20th, 2025, the date that I proudly assume office as President of the United States, there will be," now this is in all caps, "all hell to pay," back to normal font, "in the Middle East, and for those in charge who perpetrated those atrocities against humanity. Those responsible will be hit harder than anybody has been hit in the long and storied history of the United States of America. Back to all cops. Release the hostages now." No cap, no cap, no cap, for real, for real. If you're Hamas, you are thinking, maybe he's bluffing. Certainly, just like when President Trump threatened to blow up Moscow if Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. And you're Vladimir Putin, you got to be thinking, look, maybe, probably he's bluffing. Just like Kim Jong-un thought when President Trump threatened to nuke his country, look, he's probably bluffing. But the question with Trump is, can you really take the chance? Can you take the chance? Trump's a dove, isn't he? He ran against war. Now, multiple times, 3 times for president, he's run against war. He said he wants to pull troops home. He thinks some American belligerence has been misguided. But then he's hosting Xi Jinping at Mar-a-Lago, and just before he goes down to have dinner with the leader of China, Chairman Xi, he launches 59 cruise missiles, rains them down on Syria. Then he goes down and eats his steak tartare with Xi, or whatever they dined on that evening, and he sent a message that sometimes he's not bluffing. Sometimes it's not just all talk. Trump wants to pull troops out of war zones. Trump wants to focus on America, make America great again. And then he drops the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan. Trump wants to make nice. He becomes friends with Kim Jong-un in Korea. They just want to get along. And then he assassinates the top Iranian general. And you just don't know. So if you're Hamas, how could you possibly call this guy's bluff? They're crazy. Some of them are real crazy out there in Hamas. Hard for me to imagine that they don't release the hostages. This is it. This is One of the least discussed but greatest strengths of the Trump presidency is the sheer unpredictability of it. Trump is the kind of guy who, on the one hand, is going to appoint Tulsi Gabbard to top positions. Tulsi Gabbard, who is vehemently, vociferously against war. And he's also going to appoint John Bolton to positions sometimes, who has wanted to bomb Iran every single day for the past 50 years. And you just don't know who you're going to get. If you are in a negotiation, that inability to be read, that poker face, is invaluable. And we know the Biden policy on Hamas and in the Middle East has been a total failure. It's the reason that Hamas launched the October 7th attack in the first place, was because of Joe Biden's weakness. So Biden's not going to get the hostages out. Trump might be able to get them out with the Truth Social post. Now, speaking of foreign affairs, Tom Homan, who is President Trump's soon-to-be border czar, has just made a really important point on how he's going to close up the border, how he's going to deal with this mass migration issue. Thus far, people have just talked about deporting the illegal aliens themselves. They've talked about how we're going to go after Tren de Aragua and MS-13 and the particular individuals who've crossed the border illegally and get them out of here. But that's not the whole story. Tom Homan says the only way you're going to really solve the problem is if you hold states like Mexico, like Venezuela, like the places that are sending us foreign nationals, if you hold the states and the non-government organizations responsible.
The Trump team coming to town, we're going to take control January 20th, and people are going to be held accountable. We're going to be very transparent. We're going to get behind. What did the United Nations have to do with this open border crisis? Who in the administration, the Biden administration, opened the doors on this humanitarian crisis? What NGOs were involved in this? We're going to be very transparent to American people, and we're going to tell them the truth, what happened on this border. Again, by design, and we're going to let the American people know who was involved, why, and hold them accountable.
This is key. Mass migration is not just a personal issue. It's not just individual by individual by individual. It's a political issue. It's states, it's international organizations like the UN, it's non-governmental organizations. This is one of the big errors that we make in liberal modernity, is we make everything about the individual. The left and the right both do it. The left does it by constantly seeking to maximize individual autonomy and to tell individuals that they can be whatever they want to be. Absent a country, you're not a citizen of a country, you're a citizen of the world. Absent a family, you have no obligations to your family. You're a radical individual. If they're not serving your particular whims and desires, get rid of your family. Don't show up to Thanksgiving. The individual autonomy to the point that you say, hey, you don't like your sex? Well, be the other sex. Whatever you want. All about the individual, but the right wing does it too sometimes. When they say, forget about the common good, that's a dirty phrase. Forget about the community. That you sound like a commie if you ever talk about the community. Don't think about your obligations to the people around you or to your country. Just go out there, make money for yourself, spend your money how you want to see it. Don't even leave money to your kids. Just make it all about you. Individualism, radical individualism, is one of the pathologies of modernity, and pretty much no one is immune to it. But you don't solve political problems at the individual level. Or I should say, you don't only solve political problems at the individual level. You need individuals to grow in virtue and holiness, and you need them to better themselves, certainly. But even that is a process that involves other people. You need teachers to educate them. You need families to be their first source of education, to really form the person. You need just communities to have laws that inform their conscience. You need politics. You need a lot of people. We are not, as the liberals say, purely individuals. We are the social creature. We're a coupling creature. We're the political animal. And so you need political solutions. You're not going to solve the border crisis by deporting a number of face-tattooed, Satan-worshiping individuals. You're going to solve the border crisis by getting down to what Kamala Harris was supposed to do, the root causes, and the root causes are political. States, laws, non-government organizations, some who push their radical open borders policies, even, to my mind, with some sacrilege, under the banner of Catholicism. They insist that it somehow comes from the deep wells of Christianity from Catholic social teaching that people are not allowed to have borders and immigration laws can't be enforced and we have to allow poison and murderers and criminals cross our border. But you got to find out what those organizations are, and you need to make sure that they get in line and they respect the rule of law and they respect the civil authority, especially when the civil authority is acting in a just way. Speaking of the southern border, Border Patrol in Texas has just encountered a 10-year-old Salvadoran kid who was totally left alone by his parents, by his family, and by the cartels who were smuggling him across. Here's the interaction.
Buenos días, mijo. ¿Cómo estás?
How are you?
Huh? ¿Qué pasó, mijo?
Little kid says, good. What's wrong? You okay? They left me alone. They left you alone?
Okay.
They don't want to guide me. Who's they? Probably the cartels. Did you come by yourself? Yes. How old are you? Look at this poor little kid. He's 10 years old. 10 years old. By yourself? Yes. Your mom and dad? My mom's in the United States. This kid is old. He's rightly distressed. Which part of Mexico are you from? El Salvador. How old are you? He wants to get this back. How old are you? 10. The guide left you alone? The guide, obviously, is a criminal employed by the people who control the border. Are you lost?
Okay.
Yes, he says.
Okay. Pues ya llegaste a los Estados Unidos.
Well, you're in the United States.
Ahorita le hablo a la migración.
I'll call Border Patrol.
¿Entendido?
They can pick you up.
Okay.
I don't care how much of an immigration hawk you are. You see a little kid like that, your heart just breaks. Some little 10-year-old kid, left alone, abandoned by his degenerate mother, and who knows where the father is, abandoned by the definitionally degenerate cartels, abandoned by his government, and abandoned by our government. I don't care that that guy says, hey, don't worry, I'll call Border Patrol, they'll come pick you up. I'm talking about a much deeper abandonment. Our government, led by Democrats and some squish Republicans, has encouraged that situation. Our government, the United States government, by refusing to enforce the laws because the Democrats are in charge, has encouraged that little kid to be left alone in another country, a 10-year-old kid on the verge of tears, obviously in distress, has encouraged that kid's mother to just let him cross the border with the help of criminals, has encouraged the criminal cartels to control the border. Democrats are responsible for this. This is a reminder. The chief victim of the open border is the American people. But there are other victims. Fusion and Amnesty International put together a survey. This was some years ago now. It was reported in the Huffington Post that 60 to 80% of women and girls who cross the border illegally are sexually assaulted on the journey. That is totally avoidable. It's totally avoidable if the Democrats just do their basic job and enforce the law. But they won't do that. They won't do that because they've made a cynical calculation that if they just import millions and millions of foreigners, it will give them a permanent electoral majority. A dubious proposition now that Trump is winning almost half of the Hispanic vote, but that's a separate point. Democrats are intentionally subjecting girls to and 10-year-old kids from El Salvador to be left alone in the middle of the desert. They're intentionally doing that because they believe that the good end for them of constantly being elected justifies the evil means of giving criminals control of our southern border and having some kids be lost in the desert and having some women be. That is the calculation they're making. There's no question that it's happening. The Democrats will tell you, they'll look at this, they'll say, how can you awful Republicans look at this poor little boy and not want a totally open border? No, I draw the opposite conclusion. I look at that poor little boy and I say, you need to close that border up right now because every second that border is open, another one of those little kids is going to be encouraged to come across. And that's very, very evil to do that. And the Democrats know what they're doing. Maybe not the people on the ground. They keep their head in the sand. But the people who are actually implementing these policies, they know exactly what they're doing and they're willing to sacrifice a few little Salvadoran kids, a few thousand little Salvadoran kids, if it means they're going to get more votes. Takes some broken eggs to make an omelet, apparently. Now, I want to tell you about something totally different. I want to tell you about menswear. That's why I want to tell you about Public Rec. Go to publicrec.com, use code Knowles. Let's discuss a fundamental truth about modern menswear. Traditional dress pants have often become unnecessarily restrictive. Don't you think they've gotten a tight little millennials legging looking thing. Casual alternatives are sloppy and disgusting. Public Rec's Dealmaker pant has achieved a lovely balance, combining the comfort of athletic wear with the refined appearance of trousers. As someone who values tradition and comfort, I can tell you these pants are revolutionary. What sets them apart is their precise sizing system. No settling for arbitrary small, medium, or large. No. You get exact waist and length measurements, ensuring a perfect fit, the way men's clothing ought to be made. Stop suffering in regular pants and give the gift of comfort this holiday season. Get 20% off when you use code Knowles, KNWLES, at checkout. That is 20% off with code Knowles at publicrec.com. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please tell them that we sent you. Give yourself or someone you love the gift of comfort this Christmas. Speaking of kids, NBC has a doozy of a headline out yesterday. We got to talk about these things. I want to talk to you about Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles. There is no shortage of ads from the big wireless carriers offering the latest iPhone for free. But look deeper, my friend. There's no such thing as a free lunch. You'll realize that to qualify, you need to trade in your phone valued at $1,000. You need to be on the $100 a month unlimited plan and pay the $35 activation fee. Do not fall for it. Pure Talk has a better option. Get a brand new iPhone 14, which has all the bells and whistles you need, plus you get unlimited talk and text, plus you get 15 gigs of data, plus you get a mobile hotspot. And it's not all for free, but it's close. It's for $50 a month. Half the price of the big guys, you get a new iPhone powered by America's most dependable 5G network. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles today. Switching is easy. Plus, when you go to puretalk.com/Knowles, you will get an additional 50% off your first month. 50% off your first month. Go to Pure Talk, my wireless company, Pure Talk, America's wireless company. Speaking of kids and presidential politics, Joe Biden is pardoning Hunter Biden. Everyone knew this was going to happen. There's absolutely no surprise here whatsoever. However, it doesn't mean that the fallout among Democrats hasn't been delightful. A lot of the Democrats are losing their minds because it has totally stolen from them one of their chief attacks against Donald Trump, which is that he's nepotistic and that he believes that he and his family are above the law. Joe Biden has just totally ripped that issue off the table for Democrats, and it's also left them with a lot of egg on their face. People like Adam Schiff, who in 2018 had this to say specifically about the possibility that President Trump would pardon his own son, Don Jr., in the probe over Russia.
So the president's pardon of Scooter Libby, Congressman, has inspired you to propose new legislation. What exactly would it do?
What it would do is say that in the event the president pardons anyone in an investigation in which the president is a witness, a subject, or the target, those investigative files will all be turned over to the Congress. The Congress ought to know whether the president is using the pardon power to obstruct justice. The American people have a right to know. I think it is clearly constitutional. It doesn't prohibit him from granting a pardon, even a pardon he shouldn't grant. But it does say that we will be able to at least find out whether the president is using this power to shield himself from liability.
It offers transparency at the very least.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Congressman. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you so much. Yeah, lol. Here we go. What was the fear? That was 2018. The fear was there was an investigation into Russian collusion, and Don Jr. was being accused of colluding with the Russians, and if Trump pardoned Don Jr., it might be a way to obstruct justice because it was going to stop them from getting to the big guy. The big guy. Wait, where have I heard that phrase before? Oh, right. I heard that phrase on Hunter Biden's laptop because if Joe Biden pardons Hunter Biden for any crime that he did or may have or possibly could have in his own mind committed from 2014 until yesterday, then that might be a way not only of protecting his son, but of stopping investigators from looking into who his son was sending the money to, which according to Hunter Biden's laptop was 10% up to 50% to the big guy, Joe Biden himself. Democrats just look like complete hypocrites. And this is a deepening of a problem that we saw for Democrats in the latter stages of the 2024 campaign. They just looked ridiculous. They looked so hypocritical. They said Donald Trump's a threat to democracy, and then they threw out their democratically chosen nominee for their party. They said that Joe Biden was sharp as ever, totally fit to serve, and then oopsie, they got caught lying because Joe Biden obviously had dementia. Then they installed this woman, Kamala Harris. Nobody wanted her. They said that they accused Trump of manipulating the media to be some propaganda machine for him. Meanwhile, their big networks get caught chopping up interviews with Kamala Harris to make her look better. They just looked so crooked and hypocritical. And then finally, the line they had was, "No one's above the law." That's what Joe Biden tweeted out. And now Joe Biden pardons his own son. He did the thing that the Democrats falsely accused Trump of possibly doing in 2018. Once again, the Democrat accusations appearing to be nothing more than a confession, a projection. Really beautiful. One last note on Hunter. CNN has this final warning to Joe Biden, which is that this Hunter Biden pardon will tarnish Joe's legacy.
This pardon will tarnish Joe Biden's legacy. I mean, Joe Biden, let's be clear here, he lied to us for a long time. He said categorically, I will not pardon my son. He said, I will take it off the table. And he couched it in very high-minded terminology. I respect the Justice Department. I respect the jury's verdict. Well, now he's gone back on that. But as to whether this tarnishes the justice system, I don't think I would go that far. I think this, like I said, will go down on the list of ignominious presidential pardons.
Okay. 2 points here. On the Justice Department was the last point. The first point was on Joe Biden's legacy. I have one question. What's Joe Biden's legacy? What is Joe Biden's legacy that is now supposedly tarnished? I don't like Joe Biden. I don't like the Democrat Party. I don't like what they've done. But let's just try to be nonpartisan for a moment. Let's even pretend that we're Democrats. Many Democrats listen to this show. Let me ask you, Democrats listening to this show, what is Biden's legacy? What did he do? He was in the Senate for almost 50 years. Well, he was in the Senate and then he became the vice president, and then he was the president for over 50 years of that whole period of time. He entered the Senate in 1972, before he was old enough, even constitutionally, to be eligible. What did he do? What's his legacy? He led a high-tech lynching of Clarence Thomas. I don't think he wants that one in the old obituary. He passed a pretty good crime bill, actually, which he totally ran away from, but it was the one good thing he ever did probably in the U.S. Senate. But he had to run away from that because the Democrats are soft on crime. He did what? He said he was going to cure cancer. I'm still waiting on that one. He forced Ukraine, he bribed Ukraine and threatened them with much needed arms, withholding much needed arms, to stop prosecuting his son. And then his family took bribes from Ukraine. What do you do? He doesn't have a legacy. His legacy is being a simpering, glad-handing, oily, venal, corrupt politician. That's his legacy. There's one piece of his legacy that Democrats might look fondly on, which is that Joe Biden is the only guy who beat Trump. Joe Biden, he's the guy who stopped Donald Trump. But then the Democrat Party took that away from him because they took his nomination away from him. They wouldn't let him run for president again. So then Trump came back. So he doesn't even really get all the great credit for stopping Trump because Trump just came right back. That's why Joe Biden, when they met at the Oval Office, he said, well, welcome back. Okay, I guess here I was the brief interlude, and here we go for the second Trump term. So he has no legacy. What does he care? Oh no, he's going to look corrupt and dishonest? Yeah, that's more of the same. Now, the CNN guy, he's trying to defend the DOJ. He says, now, does the DOJ look bad here? No, Biden looks really bad, but not the DOJ. The DOJ already looks bad because the DOJ, one, didn't want to prosecute Joe Biden or didn't want to prosecute Hunter Biden for anything. The DOJ, run by Merrick Garland, who has effectively been a gangster under Joe Biden's leadership, they didn't want to go after Hunter Biden for anything. Finally, there was enough pressure from Congress that they went after Hunter Biden for extremely low-level crimes, some tax issues, and filling out a gun purchase form incorrectly. They didn't go after him for the serious crimes that he would appear to be guilty of, that you see on his laptop, the bribes, the peddling state influence to bad foreign actors, the 10% to the big guy. They didn't go after any of that stuff. So frankly, the DOJ, the corrupt liberal DOJ under Joe Biden, under Merrick Garland, looks terrible, much worse than Joe Biden himself. And Joe looks as bad as he's always looked. Okay, so what? Now, does this mean that everyone gets off the hook? Hunter gets off the hook. They're not going to really investigate him. Joe Biden probably gets off the hook. There's this theory now that because Hunter accepted the pardon, he now has no Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, meaning that the Republicans could force him to testify and maybe flip on Joe Biden. Yeah, sure, maybe. They're not going to do that. They're not going to, I'm just telling you right now, they're not going to do that. They don't care. Joe Biden probably voted for Trump anyway. So Trump's not going to look back. He's got other things that he's doing. It's just not going to happen. You might want it to happen. It's not going to happen. So does that mean no one is held accountable? Well, some Republicans are calling for repercussions for Jack Smith, that special counsel who was trying to imprison President Trump. Some people are calling for repercussions within the DOJ, these guys who upended 200 years of American precedent and tried to imprison the chief leader of the opposition and a former president himself. And that, I think, is a really good idea. Good piece in the Daily Caller on this. You can read. It came out a few days ago. It's worth reading. Jack Smith could face severe consequences for a year-long legal crusade against Trump. I think that needs to happen because what Jack Smith and the January 6th committee and the Biden DOJ broadly have done amounts to a legal insurrection. Trying to imprison the leader of the opposition in America, trying to imprison former presidents in America, that is a shocking sort of legal insurrection, an upending of our political order that reduces, debases our country to the level of a banana republic or a tin pot dictatorship. That kind of legal insurrection that Joe Biden led, but that you really saw coming out of the DOJ under Merrick Garland's leadership, notably with the face of Jack Smith, is orders of magnitude more threatening to our constitutional order than some eccentrics in the Capitol cracking Coors Light and taking selfies and wearing horn hats getting a private guided tour by Capitol Police. Orders of magnitude. It's really not even comparable. Okay? And so there do need to be consequences for that. Some people are going to say, end the lawfare. Let's let bygones be bygones. I want to end the lawfare too. I really want to end the lawfare. I think it's disgusting. And I think it debases our country. But you can't unilaterally decide to end a war. Would that it were so simple. I happily would. But they're not going to do that. Had Kamala Harris won, the Democrats would have done their damnedest to imprison President Trump. There's no question about it. And the January 6thers, including the really, really peaceful ones who did basically nothing wrong, they would rot in jail. The only way to end the lawfare is to let our opponents know that they can't get away with it scot-free. You need a little tough love. You need a little justice. I'm all for mercy. I'm all for the pardon power. In fact, I'm a strong defender of the pardon power. But we also need justice. We need everyone in America to know that there will be consequences to upending our political order. You can't. It is unjust, to say nothing of how imprudent it is, to let the Democrats just get away with this scot-free. Because if they do that, then the minute that they get back in power, they'll probably try to throw Trump in prison then. They'll either make up some new nonsense or they'll try to put him in prison for whatever. He jaywalked in Manhattan in 1982. But they're going to keep it up. To protect our constitutional order, you've got to hold the Biden DOJ accountable. Whether we're talking civil penalties, whether we're talking criminal penalties, you have to hold, at the very least, they need to be fired and probably kept out of the legal profession, but you have to hold them in some way accountable. Now, if you've ever thought about joining DailyWire Plus, now is the time. Our best deal of the year is here, but it ends this week. 50% off new annual DailyWire Plus memberships. That means 1 year of uncensored daily shows, access to our entire entertainment catalog, including Am I Racist? And Dr. Jordan B. Peterson's new series, The Gospels, and unlimited access to our Kids app, Bent Key. If you're already a member, give the gift of DailyWire Plus. Save 50% on a gift membership. Head to dailywireplus.com/cyberweek right now. No code needed, just 50% off. Join the fight today. My favorite comment yesterday from Raider Batman said, "It finally happened. It took me a few years to see, but Michael finally dropped his cup." It was always a liability. It was always a danger because I am, on my mother's side of the family, of Italian extraction. And so when I speak, I use my hands. And now, I don't know, whenever they redid my set, my microphone is basically pressing up against my cheek. And then I've got to peddle the cigars. I've got the Mayflowers here on this part of my desk. I've got the candle here. And so my Leftist Tears tumbler is within dangerous proximity to one of my most wildly gesticulating appendages. It was only a matter of time. It was a ticking time bomb. And that bomb went off yesterday. But the pit crew here at the Michael Knowles show, led by Pavel with Professor Jacob in backup, they came in, they cleaned off that desk in a 20 millisecond clip. You didn't even see it happen. It was very impressive. It was a happy fault of mine that I knocked it over, to see this well-oiled machine of the Michael Knowles show. And they got me another seltzer, which was great. Speaking of deep state attacks on President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin has insinuated that the American state might still try to murder President Trump. He has said that President Trump is not safe.
President Trump, a smart and experienced person, will come up with a solution. Well, probably just like me, you are amazed, not by the fact that absolutely uncivilized means had been used against Trump, all the way up to assassination attempts, numerous assassination attempts. And I think he's not safe even now.
And I think he's not safe even now. I want to suck your blood. Putin is insinuating here, by connecting the assassination attempts with the lawfare and all the prosecutions and all the rest of it, he's insinuating that it was actually the American state that was trying to murder Trump. Without question, the American state justified the assassination of Trump. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris both personally justified the assassination of Trump by saying that Trump posed an existential threat to the republic and that he was the second coming of Adolf Hitler. Biden launched his presidential campaign in 2020 on the lie that President Trump called Nazis fine people at Charlottesville. So there's no doubt about that the American state justified the assassination of Trump. The question is, was the American state involved? Were the security lapses intentional in Butler, Pennsylvania? We still don't know really anything about that shooter. We don't know really much about the second shooter either. What happened? We don't know. And so Putin is coming in and he's saying, I think it was that deep state. And I think Trump's still not safe because he's still surrounded by that deep state. And there are going to be two claims here. One is going to be, that Putin, he's got a point. The other is going to be this Vladimir Putin. He's one of our enemies. He's got a ton of missiles pointed at us. He's cynical. He's opportunistic. He's just trying to drive a wedge between the government and Trump, and to increase Trump's paranoia, and he's just trying to manipulate Trump's emotions like a KGB agent to try to get it. Both of those things are true. In fact, the way that you know that Vladimir Putin is a very good manipulator is the fact that he does have a point. A bad manipulator is just going to make up some fable that's easily debunked. A top KGB spy, leader of Russia for 2 decades kind of manipulator, that guy is going to use facts and reality. He's going to make claims that are plausible. So you want to say that Putin is our enemy and he's cynical and opportunistic and manipulative? Yeah, all of that is true. All of that is true. But it is the American left that has enabled that. If the American left had not justified Trump's assassination, if the American government could give us straight answers about not just the prosecutions of Trump, but the security failures in Butler, Pennsylvania, if the American liberal political order had not treated President Trump in so unprecedented and egregious and anti-American a way these past 10 years, Vladimir Putin would have no opportunity to make these kinds of insinuations. He's doing it because it's effective, and it's effective because it's plausible. And it's plausible because the left has lost its credibility. Speaking of foreign leaders reaching out to Trump, Justin Trudeau, the leader of America's evil top hat in Canada, has flown down to Mar-a-Lago to grovel and beg at President Trump's feet not to impose a 25% tariff on Canada. This is how President Trump described the meeting. He posted a picture which reminded me of Trump sitting down with Mitt Romney when Romney was begging for Secretary of State and Trump was sitting there smiling and Romney looked like he was nauseated. Well, he posted a picture. Trudeau at least had a bigger smile on his face. Here's what Trump said. I just had a very productive meeting with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada, where we discussed many important topics that will require both countries to work together to address, like the fentanyl and drug crisis that has decimated so many lives as a result of illegal immigration, fair trade deals that do not jeopardize American workers, and the massive trade deficit the U.S. has with Canada. I made it very clear that the U.S. will no longer sit idly by as our citizens become victims to the scourge of this drug epidemic, caused mainly by the drug cartels and fentanyl pouring in from China. Too much death and hardship. So it's good. He's saying, yeah, I met with them. I just made clear what we need. Peter Doocy came out with an insider report on how that conversation went down.
And tonight we're getting some new details about that Trump-Trudeau dinner from two people who were at the table. We are told that when Trudeau told President-elect Trump that new tariffs would kill the Canadian economy, Trump joked to him that if Canada can't survive without ripping off the U.S. to the tune of $100 billion a year, then maybe Canada should become the 51st state and Trudeau could become its governor. Brett.
But more on that detail with the panel. Peter, thank you.
I love him. I love him so much. Trump just really in tip-top form. So much so that as Peter Doocy gives that report, Brett Baer, who plays it as straight as can be, he's got a little smirk on his face. That's a very funny conversation. Hey, if you guys can't have a country without ripping off our country, maybe you should just become the 51st state. Yeah, that's all right. Then you could become the governor of Canada, the 51st state. Washington's biggest mistake, not going up there and taking it in the first place. My conclusion from this actually has little to do with Canada or the potential annexation of Canada. You know, maybe Trump can hire Dick Cheney and some of the Bush era neocons. The bombs can start dropping over Calgary, and they'll greet us as liberators. You know, we'll free them from the hand of a man who is reputed to be Fidel Castro's son. In any case, seems to me tariffs here are primarily a negotiating tactic. I think that's what this is about. There are three options for Trump's tariff policy. He could either view tariffs as serious economic policy to raise money. That's one option. Option two, tariffs are a good tactic for negotiation, but they're not ultimately going to be the policy. They're just a way to get better trade deals. Or option three, he was just lying. He's not going to use tariffs at all. Option three is obviously off the table. It seems to me that it's between the first two, and I think really it's the second. It seems to me clear that Trump is using the tariffs here primarily as a threat to cudgel Trudeau in conversations exactly like this. I think it's the same thing with immigration. There are three options on immigration. Option one, reduce all immigration. Option two, reduce illegal immigration or eliminate illegal immigration, but maintain or even increase legal immigration. Option three, you're just lying, don't do anything. I think that one's off the table too. It's between the first two. Most Americans actually would like to reduce all immigration. This is clear in public opinion polls, but it depends on how you ask the question. If you ask people, do you want to reduce immigration? They say no. But if you ask people, what is the optimal immigration level? They will give you a number that is drastically lower than our current immigration level. So you can infer from that people do actually want to reduce immigration. They just don't want to admit it. However, I don't think that's Trump's policy. I think Trump, once again, is taking the middle ground, which is he wants to eliminate illegal immigration. He wants to maintain or even increase legal immigration, all of which is to say, Trump is a moderate. They're going to call him a fascist and a Nazi and the most extreme threat that we've ever had in America. He is pretty moderate. He's appointing Democrats to his administration. By the way, I think moderation is a virtue. I, along with Aristotle and all serious moral thinkers for all of time, believe that moderation is a virtue. But moderation is a virtue in the sense that, in the Aristotelian sense, that virtue is a mean between extremes. Virtue is the mean between, say, cruelty and leniency. The virtue of justice is right there as the mean between those two things. It's not a mean between justice and injustice. It's a mean between two extremes. And so I think that's Trump's policy. I think that's how he's held the common sense. I think that's how he's won over people in the middle and even on the center left. I think it's why he's rather effective. Some people who are a little bit more ideologically inclined are going to say they're going to wish he would go further. But those people probably haven't been paying attention all that much below these past 10, even 20 years of Trump's political career. Trump is a moderate. He's got a hold on the common sense. He's probably going to be effective, even if partisans are going to want him to go much further in one direction or the other. Okay, now we're about to focus in on Trump's economic policy in just a moment with my guest, Philip Patrick. But first, I got to say goodbye to the hoi polloi on YouTube. I love you very much, but you need to come to Daily Wire. Save 50% today if you sign up. Rest of the show continues now. You don't want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLES, at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.